Hi, so I'm here to talk about an issue that I've been facing with my parents. Not just recently, but for years and years. I'm 28 years old, female, and for the past 6 years, I've had almost no contact with my parents, specifically because they never made an effort to include me in their little family. Basically, before I was born, my parents had adopted a child, and that was supposed to be it for them. My adopted brother is 2 years older than me, and my parents had adopted him about a year after their marriage. Not because they had been having any issues with conception or whatever, just because they wanted to. And that's nice enough, right? I mean, personally, I don't see anything wrong with it, and that was never my problem. But the fact that they never treated me well because of this was what I did not like. I was a surprise. That's always been clear to me. And they had not been planning, but my grandparents insisted that my mother carried the pregnancy to term. So she did, and eventually I was born. Unfortunately, my parents were not very happy about it because they had never wanted to expand their family beyond themselves and my brother. And so, right from the beginning, I always felt a bit unwanted. I did everything in my power as a child to make them like me better, but even though they did not treat me cruelly, it was very clear to me they had a favorite, and it was my brother. So it was just a very complicated situation, and that's how I grew up. Always competing against my brother, knowing that I will never be good enough for my parents, and eventually I had a big fight with them when I was in college. And after that, I never spoke to them again. My grandparents helped me with my tuition and everything. They helped me find a place and gave me money until I was able to find a job. And even now, they are the only people I consider as family. My parents and my brother never bothered to reach out to me after that fight. And even though we have run into each other at family events in the past, they don't speak to me, and I don't speak to them. It's sad, but I try not to let myself think about it for too long because honestly, there's nothing that I can do about it. Throughout my life, I have done everything in my power to get my parents to like me better, but for them, my brother has always been a priority and I haven't. And I think at this point it's too late to change that, and they should know that too, because I'm not interested in building a relationship with them. And I'm happy enough with the life that I have built for myself. So that's why their visit to my house a couple of days ago was a bit of a surprise because I didn't even know that they knew where I live right now. Anyway, when they showed up, I was kind of surprised to see them outside my house. But I still opened the door and let them in because I'm not the kind of person who wants to disrespect people and create drama out of nothing. So I thought that if they were here as a sign of goodwill, then I was not going to be the bad guy. So I let them in and I was very polite and cordial, even though we had not spoken for so long. And after making some small talk, they got to business and they told me they were here to apologize and rebuild their relationship with me because they felt like they had let me down. And even though they have never acknowledged it in the past, they knew they had always treated me like I was second-class citizen. And they never treated me the same as my brother. I'm not going to lie, it really felt like vindication to hear them acknowledge it. Finally, because they had denied it since forever. And they had always pretended as if I was the one acting crazy. In fact, that was what the fight had been about all those years ago. I don't remember what started it, but I know that this was the whole point of it. So honestly, it felt good to hear them acknowledge that. And it was kind of difficult for me to hold back my tears at that point. But anyway, I was able to put on a front and tell them that it was nice of them to acknowledge that after so long, and I don't know if I was ready to accept their apology right away, because honestly, it had been way too long, so I needed some time to think it over, but I appreciated the fact that they had at least come to me. After that, we discussed our lives for a little more, and strangely enough, I found out that they were very reluctant to talk about my brother. Look, I'll be honest. growing up, I really did resent my brother and we were never close. But we were never enemies either. It's just that we knew that we didn't get along, so we just stayed out of each other's way, and most of the time we just avoided speaking to each other at all. It was not surprising that we ended up cutting each other out of our lives after we grew up and didn't have to live together anymore. But for my parents to be so hesitant to talk about my brother was weird, because usually they are always keen to talk about him. And at the end of their visit, I had a feeling there was something that they were not telling me, and I decided that I had to go digging because there was something fishy about this whole thing and I needed to know what it was. So I decided to reach out to my grandparents with this information, and I told them to find out whatever they could about all this because I found it very suspicious. And when I told them, even they were a bit taken aback. So they decided to speak to a couple of people in the family, and it was my aunt who eventually let the cat out of the bag. I'll try to keep it short. Basically, what she told my grandparents was that for the past couple of months, my brother has apparently been reducing his contact with my parents. It has been subtle, but it has been there, and lately my parents had been feeling very neglected, so they decided to bring it up with him, and they got into a really bad fight a couple of weeks ago. Since then, they have not been on speaking terms, so that might have something to do with their little visit to me. And I'm pretty sure that it does, even though I can't prove it. But I don't think I have to prove it. I think the timing is nothing short of significant. So I'm pretty sure that they are only treating me differently right now because they need a backup plan, and it's pretty insulting. I'm not going to lie. In fact, when I first heard about it from my grandparents, I was in denial and I wasn't ready to believe it. But now, the more I think about it, the more likely it seems. Because why would they reach out to me all of a sudden if not for this? And what's worse is the reason why my brother has not been speaking to my parents, because it's just ridiculous. So apparently about 2 years ago, my brother decided to find out who his real biological parents were. And in the beginning, my parents were not okay with that decision. But he spoke to them and he convinced them to let him do it and support him in this decision, so they did. His adoption had been a closed one, so they didn't know much about his parents either. But they contacted the adoption agency and pulled some strings, and eventually the adoption agency let them know that my brother's biological parents were indeed interested in meeting him, and for the past year. He has been talking to them and building a relationship with them, and my parents never had a problem with it. They thought it was nice, and they had even hosted a dinner party with his biological parents, but now he's closer to them, and he spends more time with them than his adoptive parents who raised him, and I think that's disgusting. Again, I can't prove it. Nobody else can, but my aunt thinks that it's because his biological parents are far richer than my parents. And given the fact that my brother finds it hard to hold down the job, I'm guessing it might have a lot to do with that. Obviously, these are just theories, but honestly, I don't think that we're fools who don't know what's going on. And yeah, this was the reason why I was not willing to speak to my parents after finding out what had actually happened. Because it made me feel really small. It made me feel like I was just a backup plan for them. And they needed a free caretaker in their old age, and that's why they decided to apologize and reconcile with me now. So that's why for the past couple of days I have not responded to any of their calls and texts, and today, when they showed up, I told them what I had found out, and told them that I did not feel like I wanted to forgive them just yet, especially because the timing is just weird. So even if it was not their intention to make me feel like I was a backup, they did end up making me feel like that because they waited for my brother to ditch them and make them feel like nothing before they came, and said that they were sorry about everything that they had done. Obviously, things are not right, and so I didn't want to talk to them right now, and I thought that I had been perfectly polite. But they started telling me that I had it all wrong and that my aunt was confused. But I really don't think that that's the truth. I think that they were the ones trying to confuse me, because my aunt is a pretty reliable source of information. And in fact, she had been quite hesitant to let my grandparents know anything at all. But they insisted she tell them what was going on, and so she did. My mom trusts my aunt implicitly. They definitely have a far better relationship as sisters than I do with my brother. So if my aunt said this, then I believe her. Anyway, the point was that I believe that my parents did not have their hearts in the right place when they apologized to me. And that was the reason I did not want to talk to them. As simple as that. They got very defensive, and eventually my mom started crying, saying that she couldn't believe I was doing this to them, and that apparently after they had visited me, they had genuinely started feeling that things might turn out to be normal and we might end up being a happy family in the end. But clearly, I didn't want that. I just wanted to create more drama. She said that the truth was just that I didn't want to forgive them, so their apology really made no difference. I don't think that was a justified comment to make, and I've been thinking about it since then. Do you guys really think I'm making a big deal out of this situation right now and trying to find excuses not to forgive them and let them back into my life? AITA for not wanting to forgive my parents and reconcile with them? Update 1. Hey, so it's been a couple of days since my post, and most of you think I'm doing the right thing here. And I have spoken to my friends about it as well. I've spoken to my grandparents, and everybody thinks I have every right to be suspicious of my parents. After all, they have not been in contact with me for so long, and now, when they finally decided to reach out to me, it was only after my brother decided to stop talking to them. I mean, of course I'm going to think it's fishy. And if they don't think I have a right to do that, then that's hardly my problem. And honestly, it just goes to show that they are not really sorry about anything. They're just upset and defensive about the fact that their little deception has been caught. My mom got into a huge fight with my aunt, and my aunt decided to speak about it with my grandparents because apparently my mom accused her of ruining everything for them by telling my grandparents about the fight with my brother, because now they think that it's apparently my aunt's fault that I'm not talking to them. I mean, look, I'm not saying I don't understand where my mom's coming from. But come on, let's be real. This was a long time coming. Of course I'm suspicious of them. And even if my aunt had not been the one to tell me, I'm sure I would have figured it out otherwise at some point, because they definitely would have had to explain the absence of my brother in their life now. So I don't think they have a point here. There's no use blaming my aunt for all of this. And all that my mother has done is made sure that she burns a bridge for no reason, because my aunt is also very upset with them now. And now, along with my brother, she's not speaking to my parents either. So clearly they're having a pretty rough patch. I can't help it though. If they had just done the right thing all along, if they had just done right by me as parents, none of this would be happening. At certain points I almost feel bad for them. I feel like I should pity them at least, but no, I can't do that. I can't do that to myself, to be more specific. Because after how they treated me my entire life, I think I have earned the right to be upset with them and not care about what's going on with them. Especially because it's not like they cared about me in the past couple of years. So yeah, whatever. I'm just not going to talk to them, and that's it. Update 2. Hi, so it has been 2 weeks since my last update, and my parents did not try to reach out to me at all in the past couple of days. And I thought that we were finally over this whole thing. Naturally, I thought that it was safe to attend a family event where I had a hint that they might also be there. But I didn't expect them to create such a thing out of it. So far, even though pretty much everybody knows that we don't get along, we have at least had the decency of keeping our differences aside when we meet in public. I mean, it's not like we greet each other and we talk to each other. We still ignore one another, but at least we don't go out of our way to insult or humiliate one another, and that's as far as we can go for each other. However, last evening, even that line was crossed, and I don't even know what to say anymore. Basically, one of my uncles was getting engaged, so he invited everybody, including me and my parents, and even my brother was invited. But I guess he didn't bother to show up because we are beneath him now. Anyway, before the thing, I was a bit skeptical about showing up, but then I decided that I probably should attend because why should I be scared? I did not do anything wrong. I don't have any reason to shy away from attending family events. It's completely fine for me to go. And if they would have a problem with it, then they should be the ones not showing up. So with that in mind, I decided to attend, and it was probably a bad decision because as soon as they walked in, they started making faces when they saw me. And it was evident that they were not happy to see me at all, which was different because usually, like I said, they just pretend I don't exist. However, this time, like I said, they started making faces, and every time we happened to walk by one another, they would literally turn their face the other way. At one point, my uncle was narrating a funny story, and we were all sitting around him, and my parents decided to come by, but they didn't realize I was sitting right there in the chair right beside them. Then my mom happened to look down and she saw me sitting in the chair, and immediately she shrieked like one does when they see an insect or something. Like literally her reaction was as if she had seen a cockroach on her dress, something like that. And I found that very humiliating. The people around me were also shocked that she was acting like that. She shrieked and she took a few steps back and then made a disgusted face. And that was it for me. I really lost it at that point. I was just so angry that I didn't even care that there were so many people around us. I didn't care. I was at somebody else's event. I was just done with this BS. I called her out on it immediately. I told her that she does not need to make faces like that because at the end of the day, it's me who should be doing stuff like that since they are the biggest failures as parents and they disgust me. I was yelling at her by then. I was very upset about the whole thing, and I told her that she does not deserve to have me in her life, and neither does my father. And I'm glad I chose not to reconcile with them, out to forgive them, because clearly they have not changed even one bit. They did not mean their apology at all, because if they had, they would have given me time. They would have respected my boundaries, and obviously they don't care about any of that. I called them out on how selfish they were. I told them I was not ready to be a backup child for them. I was not a free caretaker for their future, and I was not a retirement fund for them either, so now they could fend for themselves. Clearly, they had bet on the wrong horse all along, and now they were going to have to face the consequences for treating my brother differently, always pushing me aside, because now they have pretty much nobody to rely on anymore. So I hoped they would have a fun time knowing that for the future. And having said that, I left. Of course, I did apologize to my uncle because it was not his fault. And yet it was his party that got ruined, and I felt bad about it. But after that, I didn't have anything to say to anybody else, and it was just getting very uncomfortable, so I walked out. I don't know what happened after that because, quite frankly, I haven't had the time, energy, or the mental capacity to open anybody's messages or respond to anybody's phone calls. I haven't even spoken to my grandparents, that's how bad it's been. And I know it will take me some time to recover from how embarrassing the situation was last evening. But I know that I will bounce back. I just hope it does not affect my relationship with the rest of my family, because I would really not like that. I am guessing that it won't be because pretty much everyone knows how my parents are. So let's see how things work out now. I just wanted to get this off my chest, and I think typing this all out and speaking about it has made me feel slightly better about it. So I might check my inbox in a while and let you guys know what's going on. Thank you so much, everybody. Update 3. Hi, so it has been a couple of hours since my last update, and I finally opened all the messages that I had received. since last evening because my grandparents called me up repeatedly and they wanted to check on me. So while talking to them, they mentioned that after I left, pretty much everyone turned against my parents and they did not want them around anymore because clearly, from everything I had said, they could deduce that some sort of fight or disagreement had taken place between us yet again. And this time they were definitely picking sides. For so long, nobody had ever said anything to my parents about any of this because at the end of the day, this was our personal problem and they did not want to interfere. They did not want to make it seem like they were being busybodies or whatever. Besides, it would lead to a lot of drama and everybody wanted things to be peaceful, so nobody had sides or anything. And I hadn't cared about that much either. Of course, it felt a bit weird, but then there was nothing I could do about it. However, this time I guess my parents really stepped out of bounds, and my extended family did not like that at all. Besides, this time it was very clearly their fault, since even though people were not in on the whole situation, they knew bits and pieces and they could figure out what had actually happened. So they were not okay with that, and the fact that this was the second time my parents were letting me down, that was the last stop for everyone. And they asked my parents to leave, and my parents were obviously not very happy about it. They threw a fit. They tried to make me into a liar. They said I was just being dramatic and egoistic, but nobody was buying that. Eventually my parents did end up leaving, but not before they cussed everybody out. They told everyone that people were going to regret it when they found out the truth, which I really don't think is going to happen because I know the truth. And I know that my parents were in the wrong because there's literally no way anybody can justify what happened at the party, since they had no reason to be doing all that. Anyway, I'm just grateful that my people have stood up for me, and that's why I checked my inbox, because I wanted to see what people had to say, and I'm very thankful most people who were there at the party had reached out to me to let me know they were thinking of me, that they were on my side here. And if I needed any help or anybody to talk to, they would be there for me. So I don't know. That's pretty sweet of them. As for whatever's going on with my parents, I've been hearing that they have been posting crap about me on their social media. They have been throwing shade at me, but nobody really cares about that. Nobody has been interacting with them, and the only sympathy they're getting is from their own friends. Which is pretty obvious because they are the only people that they can brainwash and manipulate into thinking that they are right here, because they don't know the other side at all, and they don't have any chance of interacting with me and finding out the truth. So naturally, they think that I am the bad guy. Many members of my family have also sent me screenshots of whatever they've been posting, and even though they have not been directly near me, it's very evident that it is about me. But I don't really care. So I've told them not to bother sending me anything unless they need me, because I don't really want to drag this out. I just want to live my own life and I don't want them on my mind. And also, when I checked my mail inbox a couple of minutes ago, I even found a couple of hateful emails from my parents telling me that they had had enough of this BS with me, that they were not going to allow me to paint them to be villains, especially when they had tried to make things right with me, but I had been the one to snub them for no reason. So I guess posting all these weird things and all, that is their way of trying to put on their side of the story and trying to make it seem like I'm pushing a false narrative when everybody knows who's actually doing that. Good luck to them, to be very honest, because I think they're going to need it, given the reality of the situation and how nobody wants to talk to them or believe anything that they've been saying. I just find it surprising that all of this started because they wanted to reconcile with me. But now they're doing exactly the opposite. My brother has obviously maintained radio silence throughout all of it, which is not surprising, and in a way, I actually think that he's lucky he was able to get away from all of this, whatever his reasons were. I guess my parents raised the kind of kid that one would expect from them, and I'm probably more of an anomaly, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Update 4. So it has been over 2 weeks since my previous update, And in the past couple of days, my parents have deactivated their social media accounts and sent me an apology. So that's a pretty big deal. This time, unlike the previous time, they are not pressuring me to accept it. They just sound done with everything. In the apology they sent me via email, they told me that they were clearly misguided and they were just taking out their frustration on me, and they do acknowledge the fact that they have been terrible parents to me. So I have every right to cut them out of my life and never forgive them. But they also said that in the end, if I somehow feel like I want to reconnect with them, they would always be open to it. However, for now, they are going to be off the grid and they're going to do some serious reflection. So they're going on some silence retreat and social media detox thing with their friends or whatever. Good for them. I hope things work out for them. I'm just happy that things are going to be peaceful for me now. And yeah, maybe sometime in future I might forgive them, but not anytime soon. For now, I'm perfectly happy with how things are. And I don't want any changes in my life. I'm focused on my work. I'm channeling my energy into things that are good for me, and that's what I intend on doing. I'm not interested in any sort of drama or getting involved in any trouble anymore. So while it will be nice to be able to sort things out in the future, I'm not stressing myself about it right now. I don't care about any of that. Whatever's meant to happen will happen. I'm leaving it up to fate. Stay tuned for more stories from Our Girl Relationships.